Shalom Aleichem. I will do tefillah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitashanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al devrei Torah. Blessed are you, Eternal, our Elohim, Sovereign of the universe, that has sanctified us with your commandments and has ordained us in respect for the studies of your word of the Torah. Please, O Elohim, Eternal Elohim, our Elohim, make the words of your Torah be pleasant to our mouth and in the mouth of all the people of Israel, that both we and our descendants, as well as the descendants of our descendants and the descendants of your people Israel, be aware of your name and studiers of your Torah for the sake of themselves. Blessed are you, Eternal, who teaches Torah to your people Israel. Hallelujah. Shalom again, your servant and friend, Roy Ephraim Jaime, here continuing the studies of Bereshit chapter 2, verses 19, where we left off, through chapter 3, verse 21. I will be brief, breaking down the text with comments from the reading. Thanks again for joining us. International Ministries Restoring the House of Israel. We'll begin reading. Chapter 2, verse 19. It reads, And out of the ground Adonai Elohim formed every beast of the field and every fowl of the air. The animals and the fowls were created out of dust, exactly as man, and brought them unto Adam to see what he would call them. And whatsoever Adam called every living creature, that was the same thereof. This carried within the name that Adam gave to each one of these creatures are the characteristics of that particular animal or fowl. So we are speaking here of a man who had amazing intelligence. To do all of this, Adam had to have a distinct knowledge of speech, the meaning of all words, and the capacity of attaching words to ideas. Why not? Adam had the greatest teacher that man had ever had, Adonai himself. Verse 20. And Adam gave names to all cattle, and to the fowl of the air, and to every beast of the field. But for Adam there was not found a helpmeet for him. We learn from this that the animal creation was of far greater magnitude and intelligence than at the present. It was the fall which changed that creation. You can find that in Romans chapter 8, verse 19 through 23. Verse 21. And Adonai caused a deep sleep to fall upon man, and he slept. Records records the first anesthesia, and he took one of his ribs. The word rib here actually means side, and closed up the flesh instead thereof. The woman is not merely a rib, but actually of one side of man. Verse 22. And the rib, the side, which Adonai had taken from man, made he a woman. The Hebrew says, build he a woman. Horton says, when Elohim created the man, the word form was used, which is the same word used of a potter forming a clay jar. But the word build here seems to mean Elohim paid even more attention to the creation of the woman, and brought her unto the man. This presents a formal presentation with Elohim, in essence, performing the first wedding. Thus, he instituted the bond of the marriage covenant, which is actually called the covenant of Elohim. Proverbs chapter 2 verse 17, indicating that Elohim is the author of this sacred institution. This is the marriage model and was instituted by Elohim. Any other model, such as the homosexual marriages, so-called, can be constituted as none other than an abomination in the eyes of Elohim. Romans chapter 1, verse 24 through 28. Verse 23. And Adam said, this is now bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. That is, she is man's counterpart, not merely in feeling and sense, his flesh, but in his solid qualities. She shall be called woman, because she was taken out of man. Elohim did not take a woman out of the man's feet to be stepped on as an inferior, nor out of his head to be put on a pedestal as a superior, but from his side, close to his heart, as an equal. Verse 24. Therefore shall a man leave his father and his mother, and shall cleave unto his wife. This passage must be viewed as an inspired declaration of the law of marriage. And they shall be one flesh, points to a unity of persons, not simply to a conjunction of bodies, or a community of interests, or even a reciprocity, 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 reciprocate of affection. Verse 25. And they were both naked. Refers to an absence of clothing, at least as we understand such. They were actually enswathed in ethereal and transparent light. The man and his wife and her were ashamed, but not ashamed because there was nothing of which to be ashamed. Chapter 3. The fall of man. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field which Elohim had made. The word subtle, as used here, is not negative, but rather positive. Everything that Elohim made before the fall was positive. It described qualities such as quickness of sight, swiftness of motion, activity of self-preservation, and seemingly intelligent adaptation to its surroundings. And he said unto the woman, this is not a fable. The serpent before the fall had the ability of limited speech. Eve did not seem surprised when he spoke to her. Yes, has Elohim said, you shall not eat of every tree of the garden? The serpent evidently lent its faculties to Satan, even though the evil one is not mentioned. That being the case, Satan spoke through the serpent and questioned the word of Elohim. Verse 2. And the woman said unto the serpent, proclaimed Satan, leveling his attack against Eve instead of Adam. His use of Eve was only a means to get to Adam. We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden. The trial of our first parent was ordained by Elohim because probation was essential to their spiritual development and self-determination. But as he did not desire that they should be tempted to their fall, he would not suffer Satan to tempt them in a way that would surpass their human capacity. The tempted might therefore have resisted the tempter. Verse 3. But of the fruit of tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. Eve quoted what Adonai had said about the prohibition, but then added, Neither shall you touch it. Verse 4. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die. This proclaims an outright denial of the word of Elohim. As Elohim had preached to Adam, Satan now preaches to Eve. Yahshua called Satan a liar, which probably refers to this very moment. John chapter 8, verse 44. Verse 5. For Elohim does not know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened. Suggests the attainment of higher wisdom. And you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil. In effect, says, You shall be Elohim. It was a promise of divinity. Elohim is omniscient, meaning that his knowledge of evil is thorough, but not by personal experience. By his very nature, he is totally separate from all that is evil. The knowledge of evil that Adam and Eve would learn would be by moral degradation, which will bring wreckage, while it was proper to desire to be like Elohim. It is proper only if done in the right way, and that is through faith in Mashiach and what he has done for us in his sacrifice. Verse 6. And when the woman saw that the tree was good for food, this presents the lust of the eyes, and that it was pleasant for the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and a tree to be desired to make one wise. This is the pride of life. She took of the fruit thereof and did eat. This constitutes the fall. And gave also unto her husband with her, and he did eat. This refers to the fact that evidently Adam was an observer to all these proceedings. Some claim that he ate of the forbidden fruit which she offered him out of love for her. However, no one ever sins out of love. Eve submitted to the temptation out of deception, but Adam was not deceived. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verse 14. He fell because of unbelief. He simply didn't believe that Elohim had said about the situation. Contrast verse 6 with Luke chapter 4, verse 1 through 13. Both present the three temptations: the lust of the flesh, the lust of the eyes, and the pride of life. The first man falls, the second man conquers. Verse 7. And the eyes of them both were opened, refers to the consciousness of guilt as a result of their sin. And they knew that they were naked. This refers to the fact that they had lost the enswathing light of purity, which previously had clothed their bodies. And they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves aprons. Sinners clothe themselves with morality, sacraments, and religious ceremonies. They are as worthless as Adam's apron of fig leaves. Verse 8. And they heard the voice of Adonai, Elohim, walking in the garden in the cool of the day. The voice of Adonai had once been a welcome sound. It is now a dreaded sound because of their sin. It is not that the voice of Adonai had changed, for it hadn't. It was the same voice that they had heard since creation. He hadn't changed, but they had. And Adam and his wife hid themselves from the presence of Adonai Elohim among the trees of the garden. Here is the dawn of a new era in the history of humanity. The eye of a guilt conscience is now open for the first time, and Elohim and the universe appear in new and terrible forms. Verse 9. And Adonai Elohim called unto Adam and said unto him, Where are you? This is the first question in the Old Testament, the Old Covenant. Where is he? Is the first question in the New Covenant. Matthew chapter 2, verse 2. Verse 10. And he, Adam, said, I heard your voice in the garden, and I was afraid. Here's the first reaction of fallen man. Adam's consciousness of the effect of sin was keener than his sense of the sin itself. Because I was naked and I hid myself. He was naked to the judgment of Elohim because of sin, which must be judged. He tried to hide himself from Elohim, even as untold millions have, but never with any success. Elohim wanted Adam to know that he who hides himself from him is never hidden from him, and that he who runs away from him can never escape from him. Verse 11. And he said, Who told you that you were naked? Carries Adam's mind from the effect to the sin that had caused it. As long as a man feels sorrow only for the results of his action, there is no repentance and no wish to return to the divine presence. Have you eaten of the tree whereof I commanded you that you should not eat? The way the question is framed removes the pretext of ignorance and also points to the fact that the sin had been carried out in direct violation of the divine prohibition. Verse 12. And the man said, The woman whom you gave to me to be with me, she gave me of the tree, and I did eat. Adam first of all blamed Elohim, and then blamed Eve. He recapitulates the history as if, in his view, it was a matter of course that he should act as he had done. Man has been doing this ever since. Verse 13. And Adonai Elohim said unto the woman, What is this that you have done? The two questions, Where are you, and what is this that you have done, comprise the human problem. And the woman said, The serpent beguiled me, and I did eat. Presents Eve blaming the serpent. In a sense, she was blaming Elohim as well, simply because Elohim had made the serpent. Verse 14. And Adonai said unto the serpent, As we shall see, presents no question or interrogation being posed towards the serpent at all. Elohim judges him, and it is in listening to this judgment that the guilty pair hear the first great promise respecting Mashiach. Because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle and above all every beast of the field. Refers to this animal being reduced from possibly the highest place and position in the animal kingdom to the lowest. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. If in fact the serpent was an unwitting tool in the hand of Satan, then I think that Adonai would not have placed a curse upon this animal. Verse 15. And I will put enmity, which is animosity, between you and the woman. Presents Adonai now actually speaking to Satan, who had used the serpent in effect. Adonai is saying to Satan, you use the woman to bring down the human race, and I will use the woman as an instrument to bring the Redeemer into the world, who will save the human race. And because your seed, mankind, which follows Satan, and her seed, which is Adonai, Yahshua HaMashiach, it shall bruise, Mashiach shall bruise your head, the victory that Yahshua won at his sacrifice. Colossians chapter 2, verse 14 through 15. And you shall bruise his heel, the sufferings of his sacrifice at the stake. Verse 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrows and your conception. The original plan of Elohim was that husband and wife would bring sons and daughters of Elohim into the world. Due to the fall, they can only bring sons and daughters into the world in the likeness of Adam. Genesis chapter 5, verse 3. In sorrow you shall bring forth children. As a result of the fall, children will be born into a world of sorrow, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you. Her husband, instead of Elohim, will now rule over her. Verse 17. And unto Adam he said, because you have hearkened unto the voice of your wife. Adam hearkened unto his wife instead of Elohim, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded you, saying, you shall not eat of it. The tree itself contained no evil properties in the fruit. The fall, as stated, was caused rather by disobedience to the word of Elohim. Cursed is the ground for your sake. In sorrow shall you eat of it all the days of your life. Earth was originally intended to be a paradise, but now it will give up its largest reluctantly. As well, the phrase, all the days of your life, proclaims the death sentence, which means that life is now terminal, all as a result of spiritual death, which was and is separation from Elohim. Verse 18. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to you. Thorns and thistles were not originally in the creation of Elohim, this being a result of curse, which is a result of the sin of man. And you shall eat the herb of the field. This would not now grow freely as originally intended, but only now with great care and great labor. Verse 19. In the sweat of your face shall you eat bread. Food will be obtained by hard labor, till you return into the ground. The life source which was formerly in Elohim is now in food, and which is woefully insufficient. For out of it were you taken, for dust you are, and unto dust shall you return. The power of Elohim alone to keep the dust alive, and being gone, to dust man returns. Verse 20. And Adam called his wife, named Eve, because she was the mother of all living. Elohim named the man and called him Adam, which means red earth. Adam named the woman and called her Eve, which means life. Adam bears the name of the dying body, Eve of the living soul. Verse 21. Unto Adam also and to his wife did Adonai Elohim make coats of skins and clothed them. In the making of coats of skin, Elohim in effect was telling Adam and Eve that their fig leaves were insufficient. As well, he was teaching them that without the shedding of blood, which pertains to the animals that gave their lives, which were types of Mashiach, is no remission of sin. In this first sacrifice was laid the foundation of the entirety of the plan of Elohim as it regards redemption. Also, it must be noted that it is Adonai Elohim who furnished these coats, and not man himself. This tells us that salvation is altogether of Elohim and not at all of man. The life of Mashiach given on the cross and given as our substitute provides the only covering for sin. This concludes the studies. I pray we can continue with it further on during the week. Thank you for listening, and may all be blessed. Shalom.